Greetings, dear listeners. Before I begin, let me say this. Christmas is supposed to be about family, warmth, and love. But sometimes, Christmas reveals the truth people have been hiding all year. This is the story of how I spent one Christmas alone, and how that loneliness finally set me free. My name is Ruth Anderson. I am 74 years old, and until last Christmas, I believed that patience was the same thing as love. I was wrong. The snow started falling just before sunset on Christmas Eve. Thick, slow flakes drifted past my living room window, landing softly on the porch railings my late husband once painted every spring. The lights on the neighbors' houses blinked cheerfully, red, green, blue, like little promises of warmth. Inside my house, there was no music, just the low hum of the old furnace and the ticking clock above the fireplace. I had set the table anyway. Old habits die hard. A red tablecloth I had owned since the 1980s. 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 glasses. One for me, one for my son, Michael. He had promised to come. "Just a short stop, Mom," he said on the phone that morning. "I'll bring the kids by, we'll open presents, then head to Linda's parents. Don't cook too much." So I cooked a little. A small ham, mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, Michael's favorite when he was a boy. I kept glancing at the clock. 5:30, 6, 6:45. I told myself not to worry. Traffic, snow, kids. At 7:12 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. Not a call, a text. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Linda's dad isn't feeling well. We're staying here tonight. We'll come by after Christmas, okay?" That was it. No apology call, no video chat, no "are you okay?" Just canceled. I sat down slowly at the table. The food was still warm. I stared at the empty chair across from me, and something inside my chest collapsed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a shelf giving way after holding too much weight for too long. This wasn't the first Christmas alone, just the first one where I finally understood what it meant. Michael hadn't always been this way. When he was little, he used to wake me up at dawn on Christmas morning, shaking me by the shoulders, whisper shouting, "Mom, Santa came." I worked 2 jobs back then. I was tired all the time, but I never missed Christmas, not once. When his father died suddenly, heart attack, age 52, I became everything. Mother, father, provider, safety net. I paid for college, I co-signed loans, I babysat for free. When Michael married Linda, I welcomed her like a daughter. I gave them money for a house down payment. I watched their children every weekend. And when my own knees began to ache, when my eyesight dimmed, when driving at night became hard, I told myself this was the natural order. Parents give, children receive. That's what love is, right? The clock struck 8. I wrapped the leftover food in foil and placed it in the refrigerator. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I poured myself a glass of wine. I hadn't bought wine for myself in years, always said it was unnecessary, but earlier that week I had picked up a bottle on impulse. It felt rebellious. I took a sip. It burned slightly, warm and honest. I carried the glass to the living room and sat in my husband's old armchair, facing the Christmas tree. The tree was modest, no expensive ornaments, just memories. A crooked clay star Michael made in 2nd grade, a glass angel from our first Christmas as newlyweds, a faded photo ornament of a boy with missing teeth. I suddenly felt very tired. Not body tired, soul tired. At 9:03 p.m., the doorbell rang. My heart jumped. For one foolish second, I thought maybe Michael had changed his mind. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in. Standing there was my neighbor, Mrs. Kaplan, wrapped in a thick scarf, holding a small tin. "Ruth," she said softly, eyes kind. "I saw your lights on, thought you might like some rugelach." I smiled, but it cracked at the edges. "Come in," I said. She took one look at the empty table, the empty house, and didn't ask questions. That kindness nearly broke me. We sat together, two old women sharing pastries and silence while the snow fell outside. Before she left, she squeezed my hand. "You deserve joy, too," she said. After she closed the door behind her, those words stayed in the air. You deserve joy, too. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't sleep either. Instead, I did something dangerous. I thought. I thought about all the times I said, "It's fine," all the times I canceled my own plans, all the times I told myself, "Next year will be better." And I realized something terrifying. Next year would be exactly the same, unless I changed something. On Christmas morning, I woke up early. The house was quiet, peaceful. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching sunlight reflect off the snow. And then, very calmly, I made a decision. I would stop waiting to be chosen. That afternoon, Michael finally called. "Merry Christmas, Mom," he said cheerfully. "How are you holding up?" I looked at the phone, at his name. "I'm fine," I said, and for the first time, it wasn't a lie. "That's good," he replied quickly. "Listen, I wanted to ask," here it comes, "about the savings account. Linda and I were talking, with prices going up and you living alone." I closed my eyes. "It might make sense to move your money somewhere safer, or maybe into our account so we can manage things for you." There it was, concern dressed up as control. I breathed in slowly. "No," I said. There was a pause. "No?" he repeated. "No," I said again. "I've already made arrangements." "What arrangements?" "I'll explain later," I said gently. "Enjoy your day, Michael." I hung up before he could argue. My hands were steady. 2 days later, I met with a lawyer, a young woman with sharp eyes and a warm smile. I updated my will, changed beneficiaries, set boundaries in legal ink. Then I booked something I had never allowed myself to book before, a Christmas cruise solo for seniors. Warm weather, ocean air, quiet mornings. I paid the deposit without flinching. When Michael found out, he was furious. "You spent that much?" he snapped over the phone. "Mom, that money is for emergencies." "I am the emergency," I replied. He didn't speak to me for weeks. It was peaceful. On the night I left for the cruise, snow fell again, just like Christmas Eve. I locked my house, suitcase in hand, heart lighter than it had been in years. I wasn't running away. I was finally walking towards myself. Christmas didn't save me. I saved me. And that, my dear listeners, was the greatest gift I ever gave myself. I thought the hardest part would be leaving. I was wrong. The hardest part came later, when the people who were used to owning pieces of me realized I was no longer available. The cruise ship smelled like polished wood, citrus cleaner, and salt air. On the first morning, I stood alone on the deck, wrapped in a cream-colored shawl, watching the ocean stretch endlessly in every direction. No demands, no schedules, no guilt waiting in the next room. Just water, sky, breath. I hadn't traveled alone since my husband died. Back then, people said, "You shouldn't be alone at your age." What they really meant was, "You're easier to manage when you're available." At breakfast, I sat with strangers, a retired nurse from Oregon, a widower from Maine who played piano, a woman named Carol who said, "I raised 4 kids and now I'm raising myself." We laughed. No one asked me what I could do for them. No one treated me like a background character in their life. That alone felt radical. On the 3rd day, my phone buzzed. "Michael." I stared at the screen longer than necessary. Then I answered. "Mom," he said, his voice tight, "where are you?" "I'm on a ship," I replied calmly, "in the Caribbean." "What do you mean, on a ship?" "I booked a cruise," I replied. There was silence. Then, "You didn't tell me." "I didn't need permission," I said gently. His breath hitched. Irritation, fear, loss of control. "This isn't like you," he said. I smiled faintly. That's the point. When I returned home 2 weeks later, the house felt different, not emptier, lighter. I donated furniture I never liked, rearranged rooms the way I wanted, bought brighter lamps, softer rugs. I stopped apologizing to my own space. Michael came over unannounced one Sunday afternoon. I saw his car from the window. Old instinct kicked in. Tension in my shoulders, heart racing. Then something new happened. The tension passed. I opened the door calmly. He stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the house like someone entering unfamiliar territory. "You redecorated," he said. "I redecorated my life," I replied. He laughed awkwardly. "Mom." We sat at the kitchen table. He didn't touch his coffee. "I'm worried about you," he said finally. "Why?" "You're spending money, traveling, making decisions without talking to me." I leaned forward. "Michael, when was the last time you asked me what I wanted?" He opened his mouth. "Close it." "I thought I knew," he said quietly. "That's the problem," I replied. Then I told him about Christmas Eve, about the empty chair, about the text message, not accusing, just stating facts. He looked down at the table. "I didn't think it hurt you that much," he whispered. "I didn't think you noticed," I said. That landed hard. "I'm not cutting you out," I said after a moment, "but I am stepping back." "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means I will no longer be the backup plan, the babysitter, the emergency fund, the afterthought." His jaw tightened. "And if I can't accept that?" I met his eyes. "Then we will love each other from a distance." Silence stretched between us. Finally, he nodded. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Neither did I said. "But I learned." The first year was awkward. He called less, then more. Sometimes he listened, sometimes he didn't. But something had shifted. I was no longer begging to belong. I belonged to myself. Last Christmas, I didn't set 2 plates. I set 1. And I invited people who chose to be there. Mrs. Kaplan came. Carol flew in from Arizona. The widower played piano softly while snow fell outside. Michael sent a card. Inside, he wrote, "I see you now. I'm learning. Thank you for teaching me, even when it was hard." I placed the card on the mantel, not as proof, not as victory, just as peace. Final words? Sometimes the greatest act of love is choosing yourself before resentment chooses you. And sometimes the quiet after the snow is where life finally begins.